We're in Drumheller, Alberta, one of the most beautiful places in the world, but it's also close to the Drumheller Penitentiary, which is a medium security prison, and you're about to meet the head of the Prairie Division of the Correctional Officers Union, and he's got a story to tell, and you're about to hear it. Jake, how are you?
Hey, Terry, I'm good. How are you?
Thanks very much for making some time for it.
You're
We'll
welcome.
go for a little walk around here. So you from around here?
Originally from Edmonton, but I've been here for a number of years, yeah.
So you lived in the Drumheller area, not too far away?
Yeah, I lived in Drumheller area. We live just outside of town now.
Okay, and you and your wife have been in the corrections line of work for a while, eh?
Correct. She's been better than 20 years, and I'm a few years shy of that.
And were you, no, I know we call it prison guard. I don't know if that's the right term, but you like to say corrections officer?
Correctional officer is the politically correct term, but,
Okay.
but yeah, we generally refer to ourselves as prison guards.
And how long did you work in that role?
I'm still an active correctional
You're
officer.
still, so
Yeah.
even while you head up the Prairie Division, you carry out the job yourself?
Yeah, I'm not in the institutions as much as I was. My wife still does it full time, and I'm in and out of the institutions doing a little more of a union role now.
Okay. And what changes have you noticed over 20 years?
It's I'll say most of the changes have happened probably the last 10. It's a very different environment now. When I started, when my wife and I were early in our careers, our big form of contraband inside was with tobacco, was cigarettes.
Right.
Now that's been replaced probably with the same frequency as tobacco back in those days with meth and some of the harder drugs now.
Amazing.
Some of the changes going on are just the amount of narcotics, the degree of the seriousness of the narcotics, and of course the violence that comes along with that.
Right.
The violence is a whole different level that we've ever seen.
Give me put it into context for me. How bad is the violence?
It's a good question to how to put it into context. It's what was a rare occasion for the majority of memorable time in federal prisons is now a daily occurrence.
Yeah.
Whether it's inmate on inmate or whether it's inmate on staff, inmate on inmate, of course, we're involved in that. And when it's directed to us, there was one time that was a rare occurrence, and that's no longer the case.
And at the Drumheller Penitentiary, how often, let's say a week, would you see a really serious violent incident?
Oh, it's one of those things that's a little bit hard to quantify that way. You can have weeks where it's very calm and you see very little, and then you have what appears to just be a brash of stabbings or beatings, and they come in waves, I suppose.
And how do they get the knives and the weapons? How does that happen?
That's one thing that is a little bit similar to the movies. Is they're a creative bunch of people. They come up with all kinds of things, taking infrastructure apart, and now we've got drones and things like that, providing instruments into the institutions too.
So the drones, how do they do it? Do they drop it from the sky?
Yeah,
They just,
like that.
and they go over, there's an area where the prisoners get their outdoor time.
That's right.
And how does a prisoner know where to go to find the thing that was dropped from the sky? I guess it was a text message they get, or
Technology now attached to that is, it's of course one of the things they drop a lot of is cell phones, which provides them technology to arrange the next drop. And they'll time it to the rec periods or to movement periods. And that's certainly not unique to Drumheller Institution. We're seeing that in federal pens across the country.
And then what other, you told me offline that these drones actually deliver the contraband right to the prisoner's window sometimes.
We've had some settings where depending on the infrastructure of the window, they make almost little funnels out of sheets or other material. And then the drone will come right in, drop it in the funnel, and right into the cell window it goes.
There's a funnel.
They build like I said, they're a creative group. They build it out of all kinds of.
So they got a funnel, they stick the funnel out the window,
Yep.
and the drone drops the knife or the drugs or whatever into this funnel, and it slides right in.
And away it goes.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's definitely the stuff out of movies nowadays.
And how dangerous is it for you and your wife to work in a penitentiary these days?
Once again, it's always, when you work in a penitentiary or a prison, there's always an element of danger that comes along with that. And I suppose that's why some of us got into it. But it's just gotten to a stage where it's unmanageable. It's the violence comes with the narcotics. When people are under the influence of these drugs, there's a violence that comes around with that. There's a whole economy built around these drugs, and they protect it. And there's a lot of violence that comes along with that. So if somebody's methed out, somebody's under the influence of whatever, their behavior is unpredictable, and the correctional officers have to respond to that and deal with whatever fallout comes.
And have you ever been attacked? You've ever been? I guess they wouldn't mess with you. They're smarter than that, eh?
I've been a little bit lucky in my career. I haven't had a lot of, direct attacks on myself. Some of my coworkers haven't been so lucky. My wife unfortunately was involved in an attack on her.
Really?
And that was a few years ago. But and that highlights some of the dangers that come along with working at penitentiary. But that's where we count on the employer to, once we understand where those dangers lie, to put a pin in it and prevent them from happening again.
And I mean, these assaults must be awful. Like, it must be horrendous because you're dealing with the baddest of the bad dudes. And they're in there for a reason, so they're capable of the worst stuff.
That's the unfortunate thing is all of the people in there have been deemed by the courts to not be suitable in society.
Right.
When they come to us and those behaviors persist, well, they're already there.
So why is it getting so much worse? Like, what's going on that has enabled more violence, more drugs, more overdoses behind bars?
A complete lack of inmate accountability. All accountability tools have been removed.
What is an accountability tool?
We had things for a long time. We had a segregation, where basically it was prison within the prison. If you broke the law, broke the rules, violated those inside rules, we were able to remove you from that, to determine where we were going to put you, or where would be a more suitable environment for you, or to sometimes just give a timeout from the incident. Once that tool is removed from us, it's you attack a correctional officer, you smuggle in drugs, we put you back out, and then we let you back out for lunch.
Just like that?
Just like that.
So there's really no consequence in the prison for bad behavior?
Consequences are a thing of the past.
So then the prisoner has no incentive to behave well?
That's in a nutshell, yeah.
And so if, let's say, a prisoner just lashes out violently, 8 a.m. around the breakfast mess hall, flips out, attacks somebody, what would happen to him?
There's a few tools they'll look at. They'll deem him, whether it's appropriate to move into another institution, if there's logistical concerns around that. Sometimes there are, sometimes there's not. A lot of times he goes back to his cell. We lock him up for a period of time, and then we let him out for morning rec time.
The same day?
The same day.
So he might he smash somebody's face in.
Yep.
He goes back to his cell, and then he's out again enjoying the fresh air.
In some instances, absolutely.
Wow. So it's no wonder. And whereas before, he would have been segregated?
Right away, we would have gone down. We would have isolated him from the problem that he was causing. We would have isolated him in segregation and reassessed from there. But at least for that period of time, he was no longer a danger to himself or to others.
Wow. And what about the drugs? How many, I'm not going to nail you down for an exact number, but like in a week, how many overdoses would you see in a prison?
Once again, that varies a little bit. I was in Drumheller Institution this morning, and they were responding to overdoses. I believe there was 2 last night.
Wow.
And once again, it'll come in waves. We'll have a period of a few days where we won't have anything. And then the peers I work with there, and once again at other institutions too, uncountable the number of overdoses they respond to.
Right.
It's turned into something that was there for emergencies in the odd time that you would ever use it, and now it is just standard practice.
Really?
It's turned into an almost non-reportable incident. It's just
so common.
Just so common.
So you got drugs, you got violence, you've got lack of accountability.
And all of those are completely linked together. You remove 2 of those key portions, a lot of the other ones get solved.
Drugs and what's the other one?
I think drugs and accountability, if we put a pin in those, the violence it's still a federal prison. You're still going to have a degree you still have the bad people of society there. But that drug economy fuels violence.
Yeah.
And without the lack of accountability, there's no incentive to not.
So my plan to deal with this is, 1, we stop giving out government drugs. It doesn't work. Instead, what we do is offer drug treatment that gets people off drugs.
It's funny you should say that. I just went and toured some of the prison in Alberta where they're piloting.
This is the provincial prison.
It's a provincial prison.
Right.
And they're piloting a detox program. It was fantastic to see if we were able to get some kind of detox program, which twofold. And selfishly, we want to protect our correctional officers.
Yeah.
From a public safety point of view, all of these people, the majority of these people are going to be released back out onto the streets.
Yeah.
This is their opportunity to come to prison, get clean, and hopefully rehabilitate back onto the street.
Right.
I think these detox things have got to be the way of the future.
That's my view. And My view is also that the judges should be able to insist on treatment as a part of a sentence. If the original crime is linked in any way to substance abuse, you say, look, you have to have treatment while you're in prison,
Right.
and part of getting released will be proof that you followed the treatment and a mandatory drug test. Because if you drug test them and you prove that they're not using the drugs over a long period of time, I think you massively decrease the likelihood that they will lash out in prison
Right.
or reoffend when they get out.
I don't want to steal one of your lines, but that sounds like pretty basic common sense.
Common sense. If we can make it common again.
Only.
So, and then the other thing is we do have to bring back some sort of segregation for those prisoners who, lash out, do something violent, attack a prison guard, harm a maintenance worker,
Right.
attack another prisoner for that matter. They need to be separated from the rest of the inmates in order to allow for accountability. Because if they're not accountable, if there's no consequence for their bad behavior, why wouldn't they just keep doing it over and over?
These are not people who are here because of their recognition of consequences.
Yeah.
And so once those are removed, it's a free reign. There's another aspect to segregation that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it was also our ability to keep inmates safe.
Yeah.
If we had people in prison who were being preyed on, we were able to bring them into segregation to shelter them from violence.
Right.
And when that's been taken away, a lot of the inmate on inmate violence has gone.
So so if there's a prisoner who is being targeted, you can't remove him and separate him from the risk.
We used to call it one of the terms was checking. They were going to check this guy in to get him away from population for whatever reason.
Okay.
For his own safety, circumstantial or brought on by himself. We no longer have that ability. Now it's a logistical nightmare trying to keep people safe in prison.
So your wife has been attacked. You live in danger. You see your compatriots who do this job at risk of being attacked. Why do you do this job? Why would you want to go into a place where there's dangerous people who could pull out a sharp object and stab you at any time, who could punch you in the nose, could slit your throat? Like, why would you want to do a job like that?
You know what this is? It sounds like a cliche answer when people ask me that, but there's a sense of pride that comes with being a correctional officer that, it is a different place. It's not unlike anywhere else in society. But there's a sense of pride that comes with being a correctional officer of being able to do those jobs and being able to not only work in those environments, but find satisfaction in those environments. I've got young kids that, whether they choose a role in corrections or not, they're young. We'll see what they end up doing. But they've expressed some interest in that. And frankly, I'd be very proud of that. I'm proud of my job. I'm proud of the role that so many members of my family do. And we all take it very seriously. It's a very rewarding job. It has moments where you question why you would do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what a unique aspect, what a unique way to contribute to society.
Yeah.
By doing this job that frankly a lot of people don't know exists, and I get it, it's tucked away. But at the same time, we get the privilege of doing a job that not a lot of other people would want to.
Wow. You got spine of steel, my friend. I admire what you do, and thankful that there are people who have the heart and courage to do something like that, because you've got to be brave to go into that environment, especially the way it is now. And we are going to clean it up. We're going to get the drugs out. We're going to stop the drones. There is technology to interrupt the drones. There's even these missiles that you can that fire out elastic bands, entangle the propellers, bring the drones down in a small parachute that can be used to stop them from going into prisons. There's stronger penalties within the prison. There's the drug treatment that will clean people up. Those are the ways that we're going to turn a prison into a repair shop. If someone goes in,
what they should be.
Yeah. If you're ever going to get out, then you need to be repaired so that there's no reoffense. And we also need to ensure that the very bad guys don't get out at all. And finally, we're going to repeal C-83, which is the liberal law allowing Paul Bernardo and others like him to go into medium security penitentiaries like Drumheller. It's crazy that a multiple murderer could be in a Drum or other medium security facilities where they have that kind of freedom. And that is something we're going to repeal as well.
And that's you mentioned that one name, and unfortunately there are so many names that are less public than that fit that bill so well.
Yeah.
And if I can get personal for a second, the guy who attacked my wife, he's, depending on the time of day, he's actually outside of the fence right now.
Wow.
With no security.
Outside of the fence.
Outside of the fence. Not at this institution, but at another facility, but
Amazing.
it just defies logic.
Yeah.
And I think it breaks that social contract that we're supposed to have with the public of when these people commit these horrendous crimes, the public expects them to be displaced from them, to protect them. And I think that's a contract that is in some violation.
It is right now. We're going to put the contract back in place and bring security and safety back to the communities and also to the people who keep our streets safe. And that includes, of course, the correctional officers like yourself. We can't forget the correctional officers, along with the police, along with our border guards, along with obviously members of the armed forces, the people who put on a uniform and keep us all safe. And thank you very much for what you do, man.
No, thank you. We're going to hold you to what we're talking about here. Look forward to it.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank all the men and women you represent as well.
Absolutely.
Way to go.